minutes or something because it's running late, so I'm going to talk it through. I can go for as long as I want, so I'm going to upset you by not letting you get to lunch. So where's this fucking thing? Here it is. Right, so yes, I think it's about time to start actually talking about PC sales figures, because I think that the majority of people who are soon to release games on PC are quite off base about how they think their game's going to sell. Can I make this thing work? Can I make this thing work? There we go, right, great. So what I want you to do is, if you're going to release a game soon, I want you to just imagine how many copies your game is going to sell. And now I want you to halve that number, and your game is actually going to sell less copies than that. That sounds really fucking horrible, but unfortunately it's probably true. So, just so you understand who I am, I have been working in games for like a decade now, I think. I used to write about games. I started writing about smaller games, indie titles, and then I went to Gamasutra, where I started doing a lot of sort of developer-based stuff, which got me very interested in writing about how games sell and ways to make games sell. I'm quite a loud human being about it all. So then I was at tinyBuild, a publisher, a couple of years ago, and then last year I let my ego get the better of me, and I started my own publishing label called No More Robots. Essentially, the thing I'm trying to do with No More Robots is sell games by actually using real sales data and working out how games are actually going to sell instead of just trying to guess, essentially, how the game's going to sell. So our first game, Descenders, is out in 2.5 weeks, which is really scary, on February 9th. I've got other stuff as well, but you don't care about that right now. So this quote here might seem outlandish, but this is literally email I get probably on a weekly basis. People seriously email me saying that they think their game is going to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. It's not. Your game's not going to sell that much. It might sell that much after a few years when you've had it in a humble bundle and some other shitty bundle, and then you've given away 100,000 copies as well. Then Steam Spy will say you've sold 200,000 copies. Every game on Steam Spy that is, you know, a smaller title, I'm not talking AAA obviously, every smaller game on Steam Spy that says it's sold this many copies, it hasn't. It just hasn't. They've given shitloads of copies away. When I worked at tinyBuild, and it said on Steam Spy that speedrunners had sold, 1.5 mil. I think we gave away half of those. You know, the numbers that you see on Steam Spy just aren't real. And so if you're using Steam Spy to try and guess how many copies you're going to sell, you're just completely wrong, unfortunately. The other thing that people do as well is they use lines like this. They take games from like 3, 4, 10 years ago, and they say, oh, that game sold 250,000, and my game's kind of similar to that, so my game will sell 250,000 as well. It fucking won't. Not even close. Not just because your game is a Limbo, but also because when Limbo came out, games were selling. They're not anymore. So if I ever see this line again, I will kill myself. So these are the things that if you have these in your mind when you're trying to decide how many copies of your game you're going to sell, you need to stop doing that. So if you're looking, like I just said, at sales figures from before, probably last summer, I mean, to be honest, even later than that, then you need to not do that, and you need to look at how more recent games are selling. If you're only looking at the top games and going, this game sold 1 million copies, I'm going to say, you won't do that either. Those games are miracle workers. Those are the games which got lucky. I'm sure they did very clever things as well to get lucky. I'm not a person who completely believes in luck, but they still got a little bit lucky as well, and you're probably not going to. The other thing as well, if you really, really need to use Steam Spy, you really want to continue to believe the numbers on there are real, stop looking at the number of owners, because the number of owners is just everyone who activated a key. They don't even need to have bought it, played it, it doesn't matter. They literally might not even know that it's in their Steam library. You want to look at all the other numbers instead. I'll give a little idea of the sorts of numbers that I look at when I'm trying to work out how well games are actually selling. So things like, for example, Steam review numbers. Steam have made it since last year so that the little review numbers in the top corner of Steam pages, that only shows for games that were actually sold on Steam. So, you know, if a game looks like it sold 100,000 copies and it has 10 reviews, it didn't fucking sell 100,000 copies, believe me. So there's a whole other combination of things. I've got this, it's not really a secret formula, but it's a secret formula for how I work out how games are actually selling. I use these review numbers. I use player figures rather than owner numbers because the number of people actually playing the game is a far better indication of how many people actually bought it. Concurrent players as well. You can download this thing called Enhanced Steam, which is like an add-on for Chrome, and it will all of a sudden fill the Steam page with actual useful numbers and information. Well, it also includes Steam Spy as well, but still, and that's a really useful thing when you're trying to, on the fly, work out how games are selling. And then there's a sprinkle of my own intuition in there as well, because I'm an egomaniac. So I've been pulling all of these kind of numbers for a while. I've been doing it since my Kama Sutra days. I used to do articles about this, and when I was at Tinyville, I pulled loads of numbers, and more recently I've been pulling more numbers than I have time for itself. So these numbers are a year old. Okay? These are the numbers I was pulling a year ago when I was sort of setting up No More Robots behind the scenes. So essentially, what I've given you here is I've given you, on average, so to clarify where I get these numbers from, I've essentially just spent hours and hours and hours just pulling numbers off Steam for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games that were selling around about that time. And then I'm giving you essentially the median and the mean. The medians, well, it's hard to say which is more useful here, and I'll explain this soon. But I'm giving them both, so you just got them. So about a year ago, the average game was probably selling about 500 copies on Steam and making about $2,000, which I guess is what, about £1,500, something like that. And these were the average price as well. I thought that was an interesting thing to include, the average price of games, which I don't know about you, that's pretty low for me. I think that's ridiculously low. But you do have to remember a lot of games coming out on Steam now are just like $1, because that's what people do, I guess. So that's the old normal. Unfortunately, this is the new normal. So these are more up-to-date figures. Like I said, I've been pulling figures all the way through the year. So these are the sorts of figures you can expect now. If you take all games on Steam, I pulled out, this is all indie stuff again. I have to keep saying it, it's not AAA. I've ignored AAA because it's not useful, is it? And I've ignored free-to-play as well, so that's not skewing it. The average game sells about 100 copies and makes about $300. I'm probably being optimistic. I'm probably being nice. Most likely it's less than that. And the average price went down as well. Look at this. Even the average price has gone down here to $5, which is super depressing. And just to kind of round off these depressing numbers as well, last year, just before Steam Direct opened, so Steam Direct, if you're not aware, is this concept that anybody can launch a game on Steam now. You just pay $100 and you're away. There's about 25 games releasing every day on Steam. It's about 35 games a day now. I'm surprised it's not higher, to be honest. When you open a system like this, you'd imagine people would flood in even more, but I wouldn't be surprised if this number will greatly increase in the months to come. But yeah, it's 800 games a month, so if you were hoping for that sweet, sweet Steam front page, or any sort of discoverability at all, it's not happening. Right, now that's all super depressing, okay? It's all horrible, you're never gonna make any money, all stop making games now, alright? Just go away, don't make any games. No, the main thing is that even though this is happening, and even though these numbers are horrible, everything is shit. Like, the vast majority of games that are coming out on Steam are crap, and I don't mean that in a sort of a horrible way. I know it sounds like I do. The vast majority of games, when you actually look through the games that are coming out on Steam, are purposely shit. Like, there's asset flips, there's just $1. Most games coming out now on Steam are just dollar pieces of crap. The person who put them on clearly spent about a week on them and just threw them on Steam because they can do that now. And they give it a name. The games that are selling alright-ish on Steam right now are called like PlayerUnknown something or other, but just with a letter in PlayerUnknown's change, so that people buy it, because people are idiots. So when you're looking at these numbers, you've got to remember that they're skewed by absolute shite. Because you're in this room today, you are not going to release something that's absolute shite, right? Because you're just not. I'm going to trust you on this, all right? So you don't need to look at these skewed numbers, all right? Because you're not one of the shite bringers. We are going to look now at numbers that I use when I'm looking at how games actually sell, where someone's actually putting the effort in, making a real game, doing marketing, and actually giving a damn. So this, for me, is the new reality. I'll give it some title, and that's all I can think of. This is where I essentially, to give you an idea of where I get these numbers from, this is where I've taken the numbers you just saw for the new normal, and I've cut out all of the crap that was never going to sell in the first place, or I hate, or I think it's stupid. It's very much me numbers, this, but I honestly think these are way more useful. They're still a little bit depressing. They're still not what you'd like to see. But if you look at these numbers, you see that if you actually care, and you actually try, and you do all of those crappy marketing things people tell you to do, and you, I don't know, try and get Steam wish lists, and you do this and do that, try and get some press, you can, on average, hope to sell about 1,000 copies on your first month of launch. And the average amount of money that is being made is about $10,000. You'll notice that the average price is a lot higher now. Again, most of the shit games are selling for low amounts of money. But also, I think price for me is quite a big thing. I think people have started to, because of the skewed numbers, misappropriate that people aren't paying money for games anymore. I think that's absolute bull. I think that actually a lot of people, and this is a lot harder to prove, so take this with a pinch of salt, but I think a lot of people actually are looking down the list of new games that have come out on Steam, and are seeing the higher priced ones and are thinking, hey, maybe this isn't shit, and are actually like going and looking at it. I think there's people who are looking for actual not crap that is priced reasonably on Steam now. And I mean, the numbers that I see, a lot of the best-selling games right now are higher-priced games. Now, I'm not saying it's because they're higher priced. Obviously, you know, a lot of the time these people are doing all the stuff you're meant to do. Yeah, if you're in that horrible bit where you're trying to decide on the price of your game, really actually look at how the best-selling games, the ones that are doing all of the right things, see what prices they are using, because you might be surprised to find that you can charge a little bit more than you thought you could. That was super confusing. So yeah, so essentially the wrap up here is that yes, games are selling really bad on Steam right now. The fact you are in this room probably means that you're not making you know, any of the low-end crap, and you're actually trying to make good games and make a living out of this. If you are, those numbers I showed you are probably closer to what you can expect. That's still not great, but there's plenty of things that you can do to be on the good side of that. Unfortunately, that's probably a talk for another day, because that would probably take about an hour to talk about. So yeah, I hope any of that was useful, any of those numbers I just threw at you, and yeah, I'm happy to take questions, I guess. Thank you. normally when one person asks a question and other people, yes.
So how many copies of the game you're putting out are you expecting to sell?
Oh wow, that's a horrible question. I mean, I would like to. Realistically, I'm hoping that our game will sell at least 5,000 copies in the first month of launch. That's what I'm hoping. That would put me in the top 0.1%. So, but like I say, there's things that you can do to try and put yourself there. I believe that myself and the developers I'm working with are doing that. We'll see if I eat my words soon.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
How soon would you look at as a format? So you're already thinking about PlayStation and consoles before?
Yeah. So that's part of the other talk. Essentially, the one of the big things that I do is that I try to not hate the expression, put all of my eggs in one basket, so to speak. I mean, if you're just going to launch on Steam, I kind of hope that's going to do it. Maybe it will. There's loads of games that are doing that. We are trying to, we're essentially bringing the game to as many platforms as possible. Another big part of that as well is trying to build as many different kind of behind-the-scenes relationships as you can as well, where when it comes time for launch, there's going to be a lot of different people who are interested in the launch of the game. So rather than just going out and hoping that people are going to buy it, you're kind of hopefully reducing the risk a little bit by making sort of big names A, B, and C want to shout a little bit about the game on launch as well. Anything else? Yes. Hello.
How do you find working with Valve?
Surprisingly really good. The thing is that whenever you say like, oh yeah, I found this experience working with this platform holder really good or really bad, the thing is that somebody else found it the opposite of you. It's kind of right time, right place sometimes, or right person. Working with Valve for me personally has been amazing. I've kind of got a person there who's kind of our kind of release manager, and he has been helping us a lot to work out all the different things we can do for launch of the game, which has made me feel a lot more confident about it. So yeah, pretty good really.
What's the sales drop off after the first month?
The thing is with sales on Steam right now, a lot of it's to do with the kind of full price sales, right? That's unfortunately what Steam has become. I'm sure you've seen loads of graphs where like this is launch and then this is the first sale on the game. Again, that probably would need to be a whole other talk in itself, kind of working out the best post-sales strategy for what kind of cuts to do and when to do them and releasing content with it and yada yada. But for the vast majority of games, I don't think you see after the first month of sales, it's not like the sales are going to jump much higher. For the top end games, yeah, it will. All the top end games, they'll so during the cut price sales, they'll sell a lot more. During the bundles, they'll do well for themselves. If you're not getting into those things, then probably your kind of first few months is probably all you're getting really at this point. So like yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point that the Steam Store has pretty much become the app. If anything, the App Store is kind of a little bit better than Steam now, because at least if you get featured on the App Store, then you can guarantee X amount of sales. But yeah, there's no such luck on Steam really. I even noticed this week actually, and I don't know when this happened, the new and trending list on Steam normally shows sort of the top selling games from the last few days. So when you release your game, if you sell kind of well, you'll at least appear in that list, and maybe YouTubers and streamers and people will use it. I noticed this week, while I was putting this talk together, they've now changed that list, and that list, I don't know what it is anymore, but it now seems to just be any game from the last few months that is selling this, like as kind of having a sales spike or is doing well, because in that list, just this morning when I checked it, in the new and trending list, which used to be useful for new people, it's got PlayerUnknown in it, it's got that Portal shitty game in it, it's just got loads of games that came out in December in it, and none of the new ones. So I don't know when that happened and what that means, but it's probably not a good thing for any of us. Alright, depressing.
The 5K units is for the standards, is that the quantity rule or?
The second, sorry.
The 5K units, the amount of units sold,
Yeah.
is that the point of return for the game?
Well, yeah, roughly, yeah. The thing is, I not to bore you, I've got this sort of long-term plan for it that includes a lot of the crap I've been talking about, and other platforms as well are going to be incredibly important for us. It's the thing we've got going on is sort of early access style pack through it, which will hopefully work. Again, I'm just going to have to see, really. It's right now a lot of it is experimentation because as you can see, it's difficult to say right now, really. So. Time. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.